Hey guys, Elle here. And I don't know about you, but the quarantine has been driving me crazy. So I've been creating a lot of art, and I'd like to bring that to you. So today we're going to work together and create neon sunset paintings. It should look a little like this when you're finished, except even brighter. What you'll need are a full set of rainbow neon paints. I'm using Folk Art today. They are brilliant colors and they glow under black light. You'll also need a color that you'd like to use around the edge for framing, which I'm going to be using the Folk Art Silver, and a black paint. Today for brushes, I'm using a number 10 Full Bright, a number 4 stippling brush, a number 4 fan brush, and a number 2 flat. You'll also need a cup of water, a paper plate to use as a palette, and some masking tape down the line. I'll be working on a 14 by 11 canvas board today, but you're more than welcome to work on whatever surface you like. When you're ready and you've poured a little paint all around the edge of your palette, join me back here and we'll get started. The first brush I'm going to be using is the Full Bright, and I'm just going to dip that in yellow and start by creating a horizon line about in the middle of my painting. And then I'm going to paint the sun. I want to make sure there's a lot of paint on my brush because I do want to be able to blend the colors in as we go, and acrylics do dry very quickly. Once I have my sun painted to my satisfaction, I'm going to start working in some orange around the edges. I'm not cleaning my brush. That's going to give it this nice, soft, blended look. And for the sky, I'm going to be using longer brush strokes. I'm also going to start working in some of that neon pink here. If you ever feel like I'm going too fast or you want to give yourself more time to make things perfect, feel free to put me on pause. I'll be here whenever you're ready. I am also going to move on to the purple at this point and really bring that in across the sky, making sure to leave the paint on my brush so that it blends nice and gently at the edges. And we can even streak some of the purple through the sun, just giving that impression of a bright, vivid sunset. And I'll work the purple all the way up through the edges of the canvas, even though those are going to be covered predominantly in black later because of the silhouette of trees that we're going to be pulling in today. At this point, I'm ready to start on the water. So I'm going to go back to my yellow and back to my orange and kind of blend that down here. Again, it's okay that I have a little purple on the brush because we're creating a reflection. I'm also going to start bringing in my blues. Here I'm using shorter brush strokes to give the impression of choppy water. And I want to make sure that my river gets wider as it comes towards me visually. So wider towards the bottom of the canvas. In order to make sure that your reflection of the sun really does look like it's coming onto the water, you need to be returning to the yellow and the orange, not just focusing on blues and greens down here. You don't have to choose the shape of your river yet. You can just fill in a fairly large section of the bottom of the canvas. At this point, we do need to wait for the canvas to dry, so you can put me on pause and meet me back here whenever yours is complete. Now that your horizon and background are mostly dry, we're going to start adding in the midground. This is going to be done in all black. Again, I'm using my Full-Brite just to kind of fill in the areas down at the bottom and along the edges up towards the top. It doesn't need to be perfectly black or perfectly solid, but you are going to want to create the edges of your river and come towards the sun on the horizon. Remember that your river needs to be wider at the bottom than it is in the back to give that impression of depth. One of the things I'm doing to give the edges of the river a more organic texture is I've turned my brush from being fully wide across my canvas to being the thin edge. And that's just creating these little wisps at the edge of my water line. Don't worry if your horizon line isn't perfectly straight. We're going to be adding trees and bushes so that that won't even be seen in most areas. I kind of like it when the river is a little curvy, gets wider and more narrow, because I feel like there aren't really very many straight rivers around the world. Okay, and then when I start going to the sky to create shadows coming in from all the edges there and really give the impression of onset night, I'm going to switch to that stippling brush because it has coarser bristles and is going to give me some really nice texture at the edge of those clouds. Once you've gone all the way around your frame, all the way around the edges of your painting, really bringing in that impending night, then we're going to let the canvas dry again. In order for us to paint the foreground. If you feel like the edges of your night are getting a little too square like I do, I'm just going to add a little bit of purple to my stippling brush, and I'm going to work that purple back out towards the edges to bring some vibrancy back into those square corners. With the stippling brush, you don't want there to be too much paint on the brush itself because that's going to take away that texture that it's been giving you. So you want to make sure you keep those pretty dry. All right, I think I'm about ready to let my canvas dry and to get started on that foreground now that I have my black coming in from all sides. So I'm going to let my canvas dry, and you should be ready to let yours dry in a few minutes too. Now that this layer is dry, we are going to be moving on to the last layer of our painting, which is going to be focused predominantly on the foreground. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a little bit of your black and you're going to mix it with some pink. That's going to give you a nice dark brown that you're going to be using to paint trees. I'm using my number 4 flat, and I want to cover up some of the areas I maybe don't like so much about my background. So we're going to have a tree branch come out over here. Looks like I didn't add enough black. If you're realizing there isn't enough black in your mixture, go ahead and add some more. You can even mix it on the canvas until you get the tone that you think is going to be right up against your background. And with the larger trees, you're going to want to make sure you bring their roots all the way down to the bottom. Your tree shapes are just going to be kind of like more organic wise that really reflect how they are in nature, but we're not adding too many details because they're a silhouette. I am about done adding the shapes of my trees. I just want to add a few little ones out here at the very horizon. So that way we can see the depth and the distance of where these guys are. Remember that the bigger the tree shape is, the farther down you have to bring its trunk. The last thing I'm going to do for the actual painting is I'm going to mix a little bit of black and a little bit of green so that I can give the impression of leaves. And to do that, I'm going to be using my fan brush, and I'm going to be using a technique called stippling, which is where you literally just kind of poke at the canvas with the brush tips. That way, you just get a little bit of texture that's going to give the viewer of your art the impression of tree leaves. And again, we only want a little bit of green so we can tell what these are supposed to be. We still want them to look like a silhouette. Once this is dry, you'll be moving on to the final step of framing your painting, and I'll meet you back for that. Now that your painting is fully dry, what you want to do is run some masking tape right next to the edge of the canvas, but not on it, and you're going to go across all 4 edges this way, so that you're just leaving a little bit of black that we're then going to cover over. Because you have your edges covered in tape, you can use as big a brush as you want for this step and just really quickly go around those edges. And then when you're ready and that's nice and dry, your painting will be ready to go straight on the wall right after you sign it. Now that you've finished framing your painting, don't forget to share it. Hang it on your wall, share it with friends, give it as a gift. But most of all, make sure that somebody gets the chance to enjoy your efforts.